there were 50 people sitting around a big round table, and I took a poll of how many people were doing intermittent fasting along with very low carbohydrate diets, and it was 45 out of 50.
Wow.
Which was, at least in our world, I think one of the things we think is it's much easier to do.
Yeah,
than doing low carb, because you're not hungry all the time. So skipping a meal, skipping 2 meals is relatively easy.
Yeah, I think so, because if you're eating a lot of protein and fat, again, and this is why I think the calories thing is so stupid, like honestly, is that you completely ignore the fact that when you eat protein and fat, there are, again, well-known hormones that get activated, which are satiety hormones like peptide YY and cholecystokinin and all these hormones which tell you to stop eating. And it's like, okay, so if you're eating foods, protein and fat, that are telling you that you're full and don't want to eat more, well, that's a good thing. If you're eating a bagel with, jam or something, you don't activate those satiety signals. That's why at 10:30, you're looking for a low-fat muffin. Insulin plays like a huge role, like you wouldn't believe, in cancer. So cancer is the second leading cause of mortality in the United States. 2003, they looked at sort of obesity as a risk factor for cancer. And lo and behold, it was a huge risk factor. In fact, it was the number 2 risk factor, like right after smoking. It dwarfed everything, like all that other stuff that we talk about for cancer, like, carcinogens and chemicals and this and that. It's why it was like, whoa, it was way, way up there. So now if you look at the WHO, they classify 13 types of cancer as obesity related, including breast and colorectal, which is sort of the number 2 cancer in number 2 and 3 cancers after lung cancer. And insulin, of course, plays a huge, huge, huge role in that, because obesity is really the state of hyperinsulinemia. And insulin, it turns out, is a massive growth factor, which is super interesting because nobody knew this before. Yeah.
Because now that I've read the literature, you can see that insulin and insulin-like growth factor are both drivers of tumors, tumorigenesis, malignancy, and that this was at NIH, Derek Leroy. And he told me that he first published it because it was insulin. It was only published in diabetes journals. Insulin was something you talked about in the diabetes world. So when he realized that it was a cancer promoter and that cancer cells upregulated insulin receptors, it was about 15 years before he ever discussed that in a cancer research journal.
Yeah.
Because that's not what they published. That's not what they cared about. They cared about chemicals in the groundwater and genetics. And, it's just the way medicine works. And so it existed in this bubble.
Luke Cantley does all this work on PI3K, which it's then, oh, hey, here's the direct link between insulin, PI3K, and cell growth. So it's like, okay, well, this makes total sense now, because you got high insulin, which is a growth factor through PI3K. And it's like, oh, well, if stuff is going to grow, well, cancer is going to grow even faster, right? So it's like, whoa, that is such an interesting, link that, again, I didn't think about much, but is becoming sort of more and more obvious as we get later and later into this sort of obesity epidemic, which again, to me, it's sort of like, it's not any more difficult than now we are facing diseases of too much insulin. So therefore the treatment is lower that insulin. How are you going to do that? There are some drugs that do that now, but not many, but it's going to be a low carbohydrate diet. It's going to be intermittent fasting.